Hello and welcome to a video about some tooling setup for CS. At the moment what I've done is I've done a fresh install of Windows 10 on a system, and then I've VNC'd into it, and all it's got on it is Brave browser, Windows 10, and I think and a VNC server, so I can VNC into it. So let's share the screen. There we go. So basically this is the VNC version. It's maybe a little bit laggy, but hopefully it should be okay. So the idea is that we want to go into PowerShell as an administrator, and we can literally, I don't think that's very big, is it? I'll change that so we can kind of see it a bit better. Properties. Font. Let's make it 26. So it's nice and big so you can actually see it. Right, so the idea here is we're going to use an actual sort of administration tool as part of Windows, and we're going to kind of enable some features. We could actually enable the features via clicking through, restarting, and doing a load of other stuff. But with this, we can tell it not to restart, because really we're not too fussed about the WSL1. We're more bothered about WSL2. So let's enable those features. So we can say we want online. We want to enable feature. We want to choose a feature name. That feature name is Microsoft-Windows-Subsystem-Linux. And we want all of the features from it. And we don't want to restart, so no restart. Okay. Let's give it a go. I think the online enable feature. Oh, sorry, I missed out space here as well. Don't want to actually. Error. Okay, now I'm sure I did that as administrator. I will copy it. Close that, and I'm going to try again because I mustn't have done it. Okay. PowerShell. Right click, run as administrator. Yes. Let's give it another go. I can't paste. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to type it all in again. Oh no, press up. There we go, that's better. I mustn't have enabled it as administrator, so remember to do that. So it's just going to do that. It's done the operation. It's enabled all the features that it requires without restarting. So we will need to restart the computer eventually, but for now, I just want to do as much as I can without restarting so we can get the video done without and to reconnect and do loads of messing. Now we've got the subsystem enabled, so it's time to download and install WSL2's latest iteration. So basically a tiny virtual machine sort of setup. So let's actually, I've got the link somewhere on here. Let's have a look. Okay. Just trying to find the actual link. Found the link. Right, you can search Google for the link in general, but hopefully this posts. Yep, there we go. So I'll post a link in the video description as well. But it's just like a little update file to enable WSL. Okay, wasn't a very big download, so let's run it. only applies to machines with the Windows subsystem for Linux. Interesting. Even though I've just done it. Maybe because I didn't do a restart, but finish. Okay. Maybe I need to do a restart then. Sorry. Let's double check this. I've just enabled it as far as we're concerned, right? We also need to enable the virtual machine platform, don't we? Because otherwise that's just the actual WSL. We need because it's WSL 2, we need the virtual machine platform enabled as well. Sorry, I completely forgot that. So still using this dism. We want to do an online one again. We want to enable a feature. The feature name that we want to enable is virtual machine platform. And again, we want to enable all features of it, and we want it not to restart. There we go. It's enabling these features now. Okay, so that's enabled, so hopefully now it'll work. Let's see what we get. I need to pop into downloads, tools, WSL update. Let's see how that goes. Update applies to machines with the Windows-Subsystem-Linux. Yeah, so it looks like I might need to restart before it actually allows me to do this. So I'm going to have to do a restart, sadly. Let's do that then. To reboot and reconnect. Where are we? Restart. And it's all live. So configuring the update. Yeah, so it hasn't actually finished installing until you restart the system. Okay, so we still need to restart irrelevant to anything else. Okay, that's cool. Again, this is all live, so you're kind of seeing the whole process as we go. But I will kind of document the steps that have been taken as well in the video description. While it's restarting, I'll pause so it doesn't take too long to mess about. Okay, the actual other computer's restarted now. Let's go and try to do that again. Hopefully that's done enough of the update to do it. So again, it's this WSL update x64. Looks like it needed a restart. So next, system update. Yes, I want to allow it. That was a nice quick one, wasn't it? Didn't really take that long to do that part. So once it's done its thing, now we've got WSL 2 installed. So now we need some sort of Linux distro. We can also make sure that we set that every Linux distro that we run from now on is set to WSL version 2. So we want to do that first before going and getting a Linux distro preferably. So I'm going to run PowerShell again. Again, all of these commands will be in the description. And I'm going to literally say WSL, WSL, there we go, just wasn't clicking L for some reason. So WSL set, so double tack, set default version to 2. There we go. So that's pretty much it, it's set. So now we can list whether we've got any, which we shouldn't have. WSL tac list verbose, and we shouldn't have any. Yeah, Windows Subsystem no installed distribution because this is fresh. There's nothing there. So we can go to the store and actually start installing a Linux distro. So go to the Microsoft Store. And then in the search bar, type in a Linux distro like Ubuntu. If you actually click in the search, of course. You got just Ubuntu. You got Ubuntu 2004 LTS and 1804 LTS. You've also got Kali Linux, which is my preferred distro to use on this. Well, I like this partially because I use Kali Linux on a daily basis anyway. I also like the fact that it's a rolling distro, and I like the fact that it's got that WinKex, which allows you to have a full graphical version of your Kali Linux running. You can use Ubuntu, you can use Kali, you can use any one you like. I think SUSE is there, SUSE. Yep, SUSE Linux as well. So you got a good range of different ones you can add. You can have all of them on, by the way. You don't have to have one. So you can kind of have a play with different distros. For now, I'll do Ubuntu. That seems to be the popular one. I'm not 100%. I don't know. I still prefer Kali Linux myself. In fact, yeah, I'm going to do Kali. That's just me. But you do Ubuntu if you feel like it. For me, I like to use this. So it's pretty much the same for all of them. It'll bring up the sort of page for it, and you click install. You can either sign in with your actual Microsoft account and continue, or I think you can just close it, but I'm going to use my account anyway. Continue. There you go, it's just a moment. It wants me to mess about verifying things, so I'll close that. But don't worry, you don't have to actually sign in. It still installs. It just means that it's not really installing across all of your desktops that are logged into that. So it's just one of those. But I don't really want it on this at the moment. It's a test. So while that's doing, it may take a little while. So I'm going to pause the video and then we'll come back as soon as it's downloaded. Okay, that's installed. I managed to walk off, make a cup of coffee, come back before it actually eventually got installed and launched. I mean, got installed, ready to launch. So now from here, we can just click launch for our first launch. It'll do some little installation of the bits and pieces. It goes and asks you to input a username in a moment. Didn't expect it to take this long. Oh dear. I think this system might only have like 8 gig of RAM or something. But okay, give yourself a username. It doesn't have to be your Windows username. It can be whatever you like. I'm just going to put dev in, and then ask you for a password, and to retype the password, and done. So now you're in Kali Linux. Another nice thing because to use would be the Windows open source terminal application. Because at the moment I need to go like properties, change font size and make the font bigger and okay and stuff. Every time I want to resize, I can't really, it's not as easy to kind of do it on the fly here. So for now, I'm going to exit this. And some more tooling would be the Windows terminal application there. It's an open source terminal. It's really nice in the fact that it kind of allows you to separate stuff into tabs. It's got a lot of features like a Linux-based terminal does. So I'm just going to click Get. No, I'm not bothered about across devices, so that's fine. And Install. Just have to wait for that to do. It's starting to download. Let's have a look how big it is. Shouldn't be massive, although it's taking its time. 65k. Okay, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. It's 8 meg. Shouldn't take super amounts of time to do. But literally, this thing, if you're used to sort of using a Unix-based system or a Linux-based system, it will kind of feel a bit more familiar and kind of have those features that you would expect. So that's that. Let's launch it. At the moment, it launches straight into PowerShell. But if you go here, you can choose something to launch. So I can do Azure Cloud Shell, Kali Linux, command prompt. So I'll do the Kali Linux one. This is your WSL Linux thing. So it's ran. Now I can do Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out. So it's much nicer sort of workflow. It feels like you're actually working on a Linux-based system. Now, there's a couple of housekeeping things you might want to do once you've got your Linux up. You'll want to do like an update to update all your repos and stuff to allow yourself to kind of get the latest stuff. So that's sudo apt update. And put in your password, what you just made. So that'll kind of download all the lists of programs, the latest list of programs from the different repos. I'll just pause this because it may take a little time. By the time I paused it, it may actually be done. Oh, too late, it's done. Now the upgrade is an entire upgrade of the whole system. So it's saying we have 44 packages that can be upgraded. That means like to make it up to the latest version that you can get, it will require an update. So the update is literally almost the same. It's sudo apt. Apt is the actual package manager, and we're saying we want to upgrade. You can say dist upgrade, but I think that's actually depreciated. I think that is the same as just putting upgrade these days. But let's try dist upgrade and see what it says. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll do the dist upgrade first, and then I'll see whether any more things need upgrading. But I think that's pretty much it, really. So I'll just say yes. So put a Y there and press enter. Now it's going to download all the bits and start installing. So I'm going to pause while it does that and come back to this. Well, that didn't take long at all. So I'm going to give it another go with just upgrade, just in case there is a difference anyway. It says we're all up to date, then it's no. So that was the same. Like I said, they've kind of depreciated the dist upgrade, and they both pretty much do exactly the same thing. So now that we've done the update and upgrade, we've got the latest tools and the latest ability to install things onto Kali Linux. Now, you'll notice that I'm using apt, which is the same as if you was on Ubuntu. So a lot of these things, what you would do in Kali, will also work in Ubuntu. So it's kind of one of those sort of cross things. So it's a case of whatever you find easier to use, you will use. There's a few interesting items that can happen as well, though. There's using like a graphical interface on Kali Linux is a lot easier because it's got that WinKex to install. We're going to be doing that at some point soon. But for now, I want to get like the base packages that I want on here. So a way you can find out whether packages are on is just try and run them. So let's say Python. Let's see if it's got Python. It hasn't got Python. Let's try Python 3. Hasn't got Python 3. So we know that we need to install Python if we want to use Python. Let's see if it's got GCC. Hasn't got GCC. So it's a very bare minimal install. So our development tools we need to install. In Ubuntu, I believe there's Build Essential, which is like a package of GCC, all the bits and pieces for the base development, and then it kind of builds on that. So let's take a look and see if Kali's also got Build Essential. So we can do this with apt, sudo. Always trying to remember to put sudo when you're installing things if you're not on as root, and I'd recommend that you don't ever log on as root. It just means that you have to be more mindful of what you're doing if you're not on as root, because you can't do certain things, which means that you can't break as much by accident. So, okay, so we'll do sudo and we'll do apt. Then we'll do install. I want to install Python 3. So Python 3. Okay, so that's going to take a look for a package for Python 3 and get all the dependencies set up as well. So we've got all these following packages that are going to be installed, all the libs and other bits and pieces, the stdlib for Python, the minimal stuff, and it's Python 3.9 that it seems to be put in. It's also suggesting that you install the docs and maybe TK, virtualenv, and a few other things. You can make a copy of that. So I'm sure we've got bin utils as well. That's actually a very good thing to install in general. So if we made a copy of all these things it's suggesting to install, we can do those afterwards. So I'll say yes to these ones. 22 meg of additional space will be used. So 11 items are getting installed, and it's the same sort of process for all the tooling what you're doing, or most of the tooling what you're going to be doing. So now we've got Python. So if we run Python, what happens is it goes, I can't find it. That's because that's Python 2 by default. So if I say Python 3, we get our Python 3.9. Quit out of that. Let's sudo apt install all the things it just said. You know, you should install these. So let's give it a go. These are all supporting packages, like 105 meg of them. Again, if you've got not much space, I wouldn't advise you to always get everything. Let's have a look. This is saying maybe you want binutils doc, BLT demo, and Apache 2, or like HTTPD or HTTP, all these other things that go well with it. And you may end up with lots and lots of these things racking up. So be a bit more mindful, because it's saying or this or that and stuff. What that means is, see these three? It's saying do one of those three. That's what those ors are on about. It's not on about these. So I'll literally copy the whole of this as well into a text document, actually, so that we've got it. So I'm going to quickly make a document to do this with. Let's have a look. I might pause while I'm making the document, because this might take a little while. Okay, I've kind of put and noted kind of the commands I've used to get to this point, including the next one I'm going to actually do once this is installed. Okay, I've removed the ors and just chose like HTTPD because it's quite small, so it'd be a nice little thing to have on there. I wouldn't. I'd say for now, like HTTPD is fine. You can choose to use Apache 2 if you like. It's up to you, really. But for now, for me, I think this is fine. So let's let this do. I'll pause while this does, and then I'll be back once it's done. Okay, it didn't take too long. Now, the next lot of things that it recommended, we're going to put in. So sudo apt install binutils docs and stuff. I think I put 2 spaces there for some reason. Don't know why. I'll clean it up afterwards. So binutils docs, BLT demo, HTTPD, TCL, TK, Python 3 examples, TIX, and Python 3 TK debugger. Okay, so that's quite a lot of stuff. It's going to take another 238 meg of additional space, which is fine. For today's standards, we've got quite a lot of space. So 79 newly installed applications. So I'm going to start that off, and then I'm going to pause again, and we'll be back once it's done. Has it got any suggestions? Look, there's a massive load of suggestions yet again. See, you could go on forever if you just keep installing suggestions, but I think a lot of these are quite useful, but it depends what you're doing. You might not want most of these, to be fair. It's for authentication. There's all sorts of things, and these are plugins for like HTTPD, the Mesa utils and everything like that. I quite like using GDBM and stuff like that, and the bzip2 documentation is nice to look up things. So a lot of this stuff is quite nice. Bear in mind, if it's got an OR, it's for those things that are on either side of the OR as to which you would use. It's your choice as to which one of those things that you would like to use at the time. So libterm readline GNU Perl, or libterm readline Perl. One's from the GNU project and one's directly from the Perl creators. So it's down to you which one you would want to use for those things. But again, I'm going to actually grab all those suggested, make a copy of those, put them in our document as things to do. So sudo apt install and all those things, minus the ones. I'll choose the GNU version. So let's remove that bit. There we go. So we've got quite a lot there to install as well once this one's done. But we'll pause between each of these whilst it does the stuff, just in case of download speeds and stuff like that. Okay, that's going. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so that one's done. Now we're going to do the next lot of things that we created the install for. So I'll just copy the whole of this. Probably, unless you're really up for Cyrillic fonts, you probably don't want to install the X font Cyrillic. I'm going to, just because it's there and I've got no problem with it taking up a bit more space. But again, be mindful of the things that you specifically want. This is just me going overkill and making sure I've got all of the suggested packages as well. Right, let's have a look what it's done. It's done all the way to the mod auth, but there's an enter in there. So I'm going to say no to all this for a second. It looks like I need to clean up the actual stuff. So I need to have a look at what's on new lines and whatever. I can do that by minusing loads to the point where I can see how many lines are used. So only 3 lines are used, so we can move this onto the same line, and then move this onto the same line, and then we're all on the one line. Okay. I like to kind of zoom out quite a bit. Let's zoom back in. It looks like it's on loads of lines, but that's actually on one line now. So I can kind of grab the whole of this line, copy it, and then do it. There we go. We're pasting on one line instead of multiple now. So I press enter, and that's going to do a lot. Well, a fair bit. It's another 76 newly installed packages. Again, it's got some more. Like I say, you could go on forever. Now, X server is actually for X Windows. I'm going to do it because I'm going to be installing X Windows anyway. But again, just be mindful that you could do all of these in one line. So, you know, all these ones that I'm pasting, I may actually just paste them as one sudo apt install, and then you can delete the ones you don't want, because there's plenty here that you're probably never going to use. So I'm just kind of going complete full blanket on here. Man browser is actually quite nice. XFS versus X server, I'd probably go with X server myself, but that's me. But yeah, so there's quite a few here. Then the question is, when do you stop? Because this can go on forever, by the way. You can get that many circular dependencies and stuff. But I'm going to say yes, and we'll pause again, and we'll probably cut it off. Okay, so I'm going to do the next lot. Remembering that we need to choose one of these, so I'm just going to choose X server. Again, be mindful of this and kind of think about what things you want on here. I'm just like padding out everything that I want on here, and then some. Lib has no installation candidate. Interesting. It's kind of told us to install these things, yet it's kind of different packages that we're expecting, like xserver.org here. So we need xserver.xorg instead of xserver what's it or Zephyr or one of the other ones. So I need to change this xserver to xserver.xorg. libmemcached has no installation candidates. So what else? Package man browser is a virtual package provided by mandb. So we can use mandb instead. So we need to select one of these things. Yeah. I'll use xserver.xorg for this. -xorg. So these are things that you can kind of come across because I've just pasted exactly what it told me, but it was not correct for the package names. What was the other thing? libmemcache not available. It's referred to by another package. This may mean that its package is missing or has been updated, only available in another source. Okay, so I'll miss out that bit for now. mandb is one that we'll deal with. So mandb instead of man browser. So let's move that over to be mandb. Okay, and what was the other one? Memcached. libmemcached we need to get rid of for the moment. It's not quite available as that thing. We can figure out what it's available as at some point, but I'm not too fussed about it not existing in the installation. So there we go. We've got another 73 installations. Now, guess what? We've got some more like things that may be useful. Okay. Again, this is all like circular dependencies. You don't have to go. I'm not going to go further with this. I'm just going to go as this is the last one now, because we could be here forever. Because some of these things you may find useful, some you might not. So I'm just showing that you can do the suggested packages if you want, and if you come across any that aren't there, you can always change them out for different ones. I'm just going to say yes for this, and this will be the last one for our Python installation. Again, none of this is to do, most of this is not to do with Python. Okay. Again, most of this was nothing to do with the actual just Python installation. We've actually installed a graphical server. We've installed the HTTP server and a load of other things. So it wasn't just that. But it's nice additions for your workflow. Another thing that I'd like to check is if I go node, we have no nodejs. So we need to install nodejs. So sudo apt install nodejs. And you'll find, unlike the Ubuntu LTS versions, we'll have an OK version of Node.js installed if you're watching in a moment. So this one's going to be 11 meg, so it shouldn't be too massive, and like 50 meg once installed. But we take a look at this. We've got Node.js version 12. So it's not a super old version of Node.js like some of the LTS versions. So don't worry about having to kind of go off, download a binary and install it manually. So that's definitely one of the things. So I'm going to add that to our tooling stuff. Sudo apt install node.js. And what I'll do is I'll put these ones up top with the Python, and I'll make these ones be the ones that we actually want, and then these other ones as optional. Yeah, so these are the ones that I would like to have, and the other ones are optional. Yeah, so that way I kind of got the ones that you should install, or if you want to go for the workflow, and then optional ones just extras and stuff. Yeah. One other thing, let's see. So if we go npm, notice we don't have it. So we can do a sudo install npm, and I'll install a load of stuff, 278 things. So yes, I want to install it. I'll pause during this time just to kind of not have you sit there watching just a line go across the screen for ages. And then we'll kind of carry on. Okay, that installed that. But it also, I think, if you go GCC now, it's installed GCC. So it's got the C compiler and G++, C++ compiler as well. So we've kind of got a lot of different things. If I do GDB, we can check. Well, it's got no system debugger. So I might install that as well. Along with nasm will be for my workflow, but that's not necessarily yours. So bear in mind that. Now, what I've done for the ones that we want to do, I've kind of put them all on one line. So Python 3, Node.js, npm, and then we'll kind of build up our tooling as a one line. So you can just type that one line in, or copy and paste that one line, and then that will install all those required development tools. Okay. Now, there's a couple of other things. I'll probably sometimes be using Java. So I want to do a sudo apt install. This one for Kali Linux, we can just use the default JDK, whatever Kali Linux has decided is the default one. It might be Open JDK, it might be some other one. So let's just utilize whichever one they want. There we go. And it's a bunch of tools there. It's got some suggested plugins and other bits and pieces, but I'm not going to really bother with those right now. At the moment, this will be fine. It's about 269 meg of archive. It's going to take about 433 meg of additional space, which is perfectly fine for me. So I'm going to say yes to that, and we'll be back once that's installed. Okay, we've installed that. We can check it with a Java C version. Oh, look, it's version 11. That's great. So we've got the Java compiler and Java runtime installed. So in essence, we now have a Node.js installation. We have npm. We don't have yarn, I believe. Okay, so npm install global yarn. I'm I'm just going to install it as a global package. So I've got it across the board. Must remember to put sudo for these things. If you do global, if you're doing the local in directories that are available for you, you don't have to put the sudo there. But for me, when I'm doing the global, you have to, because you need root privilege to actually write to that. So I'll actually put that down as another thing if we want to install yarn for JS development. Again, it's up to you whether you use npm or yarn. It's just sometimes I like to have both available if necessary. Another thing for Python, you might want pipenv. So you've got to check if you've got pip3. It's not found, so I need to put pip3 as an install as well. So sudo apt install python 3-pip, I believe. It's the there we go. So it's going to need a little bit of extras for that. Okay. So I need to add that to our things to install as well. Python 3-. Okay. Then if we look at pip3, have pip3 there. There we go. So that's cool. So next, what we want to do is install. I'm going to install pipenv. So pip3 install pipenv to give us the environmental changeover stuff, so we can kind of work with different repos and that in virtual environments. So it's like a pipenv is a wrapper for virtualenv, to allow for virtual environments and clones of virtual environments to be available to us. Let's look. Warning, script blah blah is install, which is only not in the path. Yeah, I think these are fine. Let's double check. Should be fine. Pipenv not found. What are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're probably going to have to do the path, but let's just see if it's a case of it needs to refresh the thing. So I'm going to close that, open it up again and see if it's just that. If it's not, we may have to mess about with yeah, it's fine. It was just you need to close and reopen the terminal or source the environment. So that's fine. So it was just a path environmental issue. Type today. Nothing new there then. So now we've got pipenv. I'm going to add that to our list of things that we want to get. Bearing in mind we know that is a pip3 install instead of doing a sudo apt. So certain things that you want to install using apt, certain things you want to install in different ways. I'm going to install an assembler for my workflow. That we already have an assembler AS, but it's the GNU one, so it defaults to gas syntax, which is great for certain things. But for me, a lot of the times I'm teaching how to use Intel assembly instead of gas, so it's a different dialect. So for now, there's either FASM, which is flat assembler, TASM, which is turbo assembler, or NASM, which is net wide assembler. One of the more popular ones is probably NASM at the moment, but you can kind of feel free to use any. Sudo apt install NASM and put my password in, and it's like a little tiny file. It shouldn't take too long. There we go, it's done. So that would be for assembly dev. So I'm going to make another area for that. Also, I want GDB if you're going to be doing assembly development. So we can check whether GDB has just been installed in general. No, so let's go and get it. Sudo apt install GDB. Again, I'll put this on the same line in the README, so that you don't have to type these in separately. Yeah, let's install that. Awesomeness. So we're slowly getting our tool set built up. Also, you may be a Rust developer, so we can go and get Rust up and do our Rust installation. I like to work more in Rust nightly, but that's just me. I enjoy low level and system level development and things like making operating systems and stuff, so I'd want to have nightly. Okay, but it's up to you as to which one you prefer to install. I didn't really want to make this to be a tutorial on how to install like everything out there. It's just some tooling that I kind of use. So I'm going to actually do that. So Rust, I'll put a link to the website in the description as well. This one's a really simple one. Copy, paste. Okay, I'm going to put this also in there for Rust development. And just run that. It basically downloads a script from them and then runs it. Let's see what this is doing. Download and installer. So we know we've got curl then. That's good. I was going to actually check whether we've got curl first. So this kind of jumps up, says cargo home directory is located here. So it puts it within your home directory. So we need to add that in the environmental variables. It will give you that at the end as well and explain what it's going to do. So it's explaining all the bits and pieces that it can do. At the moment, it's set for GNU Linux, 64-bit. Its toolchain is stable. At the moment, I don't want that version. I want to have a different toolchain. I want the nightly toolchain, still the default profile, and still change path. So what we can do is we can customize installation. So you press 2, press enter. Just press enter for the ones that you want default. But the one that I want to change is the toolchain. So I want nightly. Profile can be the same default. Modify path, yes, definitely. So now if we look at this, it's now same thing for this part, same thing for this part, same thing for this part. The only thing I've changed is the nightly there instead of the other one. And then you just do 1 to proceed with the installation. So I'll go and download all the bits that you need for your basic Rust nightly development. For me, I've got a few more bits that I do install. I can't remember offhand the actual bits and pieces that I do want, so I'll leave that a little bit for another one. But again, it's just looking at what sort of development you're doing and what plugins or additional bits that you will want. Like if you want to make a cross compiler, you'll have to add different things and Rust STD and a load of other extras to it. But for now, this is more of a base install to just say we've got some programming languages on. This has all been done kind of inside the WSL once you've got it. There are other things that you'll probably want to do outside of it, like maybe you'll want some, if you're doing like JavaScript development, you might want something like a thing that can kind of make web requests, like JSON requests and things. There are several of those to grab, but you can kind of play about and decide what you want to do. Configure current shell, run this. You need to restart it to get the environment running. This will be already added to your profile, but that requires you to close this and open it again. If you just do source home cargo env, it will be the same as almost restarting the shell. So now if I do cargo version, it gives me the cargo version, so it's installed. And the Rust compiler version, it gives me the thing, and notice it's a nightly version. Again, there's certain things that you can do, but for now we just get it up and running, so we've got it. There's a editor which I use a lot in when I'm in terminal, and that'll be Vim. So let's have a look. It hasn't got it, so let's install it. Sudo apt install Vim. Some people prefer Emacs, some people prefer other editors, and I'm perfectly happy to use any of them. It's just this is the one I'm used to, along with VS Code and Atom and other ones like that. But this is my, or Vi and Vim I kind of grew up with. I grew up with Vi originally on Unix systems, doing a lot of sort of like server-based stuff. So Vim is the natural progression for that. A lot of people like Emacs. I have not really got to grips with it or bothered with it too much myself, but I've heard some good things about it. But it's like the whole holy war of which editor's better, so I don't tend to get into that. I kind of just use what's there most of the time. And at the moment, if there's nothing there, I'll install Vim. That's my preference, but you can install whatever one you like. One of these days I might get around to using Emacs, but it's down to time and so many different things. So we've got Vim. It's Vi improved. So that's cool. So again, I'll probably add that onto the optionals because that's something, again, it's up to you what you install as your editor. Right, and let's see if we've got Git installed. Yes, we do. I think that was part of NPM kind of installed Git for us, I think. You know, when we did the NPM, that was one of the dependencies, I think. So that kind of that pulled in quite a few different dependencies for us. Again, we now have the ability to do things for JavaScript, for Python, for Java. There's a couple of other things you might want to do if you're a front-end developer. You might want to create React app. To do that, we can do a sudo npm install global create React app. Again, you can use npx to do this, but I like to have things actually installed on my system. It's up to you entirely. But yeah, this is the kind of boilerplate creation tool, the de facto standard for people who are learning how to write React apps, I suppose. It kind of boilerplates loads out for you, so you just have to, you don't have to deal with the doing that. Okay. So I'll add that to the JavaScript development side. So when we're doing the yarn, we can also do the create React as well. Again, nodemon as well. It's the node daemon, which kind of, or daemon, which kind of allows you to do live reloads on server-based things. So sometimes that's quite useful. So we can do a sudo npm I tac g. When I say attack, I mean like we're tacking something on, so it's a dash. And we're going to put nodemon, nodemon. Right, so once that's done, we've got a few other interesting tools. I mean, curl is great. There's also something called httpie, which a lot of developers also use. I haven't really got my head around it too much because I don't really use it for anything. But it's like curl on souped up steroids, I think, really. So it may be something interesting for you to get. I may look into where to get it from and stuff. But for now, that's kind of a good start, I suppose. Now, if we go a little bit outside of WSL now, a couple of other things that I want to get. We'll get VS Code. We can get that for Windows because we're on Windows. And it will integrate very well with some extensions to work within WSL. So we can be within the confines of WSL using the Windows system. So we can just do a user install or download the installer. There we go. I keep saving all the stuff in download tools so that I can kind of get to them easily and maybe back them up as one entity itself. While that's downloading, I'll pause so we kind of get a little bit more seamless integration. Okay, it didn't take too long to record. I literally got a sip of coffee and then it was done. So let's run it. There we go. I accept the agreement. I sign my life away to Microsoft. I mean, yes, it's great. So let's have a look. Continued. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Visual Studio Code. That's fine. Why not? We'll create a desktop icon. We'll add some bits and pieces and register it as with the supported file types, and make sure the bottom one's ticked as well. If I go back, make sure that add to path is done. Now, bear in mind, requires shell restart. That means it's not added to the environmental variables. So if you was to run it in shell, it will not see it until you restart the shell. So next, and install. It should come up probably at some point with some bits and pieces, but it's doing a user installation, so it's actually within your user applications rather than being a system-wide install. Shouldn't take super amounts of time. If it does start taking a while on the next page or something, I'll pause anyway. No, that was pretty much it. So finish, we'll launch it. Let's see it in action. There's quite a few extensions I find myself having in VS Code. It's telling me I've got Windows Subsystem for Linux installed. Do you want to install the recommended extensions? Let's show the recommendations and see what it's actually saying. Remote WSL. That's great. We can also do like remote development. This one has WSL, SSH, and other ones in there in containers. So this will kind of install the WSL and the SSH for you. And I think if I make it a bit bigger, we can see the other one, right? There we go. So remote containers, remote SSH, and remote WSL. This kind of allows you to do like different sorts of development inside containers and inside stuff. So it may be one that's maybe more suited than just installing the remote WSL. So I usually install that. Let's close that bit now. Again, if you don't want to be sending information to Microsoft, you can use like open source equivalents of these things and other stuff. Right now, I'm not too fussed. I'm not bothered about them getting any information. This is like a fresh install thing, so it's not really something I'm bothered about right this second. So technically, I think that's installed then. So we've got that. We don't have any, we're not opened any folders or anything at the moment, but you can have a little look through the extensions in general by looking at this little square thing here. Let's not do remote, let's just do that. So in general, we've got the installed ones. Look, it's saying popular. We've got Python, C++, ESLint, Prettier. Prettier is good to clean up your code. You do have to do a little bit of settings and stuff. Jupyter Notebook support, that's pretty cool. I don't really use it, but it may be something interesting. Live server is great for having an auto reloading HTTP server. So usually it'd be nice to install that if you're doing any sort of HTTP or HTML development. Again, I'm probably going to install Python. I don't know whether we can install them at the same time or whether I've got to wait for the one to do. Might have to wait for the one to finish installing before the other. But yeah, so there's a myriad of different sort of things that you can install, depending upon your workflow and depending on what you need to do. I'm probably going to install the C++ and stuff as well. Don't know about ESLint just yet because sometimes it requires too much setup and it can be annoying. But I'll take a look at that as we go. I'll probably do the Prettier as well. Usually if I'm doing C++ or C#, actual development, unless it's cross-platform, I'll probably be using full Visual Studio Code instead of just the VS Code. I mean, full Visual Studio versus the VS Code, to be honest, for my workflows. That takes a very long time to install when you want to have all the bits and pieces on it. So I'm not going to do that during this video, otherwise it get ridiculously long. I may do another video doing that at some point, but I think hopefully it should be fairly straightforward for anyone who wants to actually do that. Let's have a look. Let's close that. So we've now got Prettier in there. It kind of like cleans up the code. Look, it actually says default formatter. To ensure that this extension is used over other extensions you may have installed, be sure to set it as default formatter in your VS Code settings. This setting can be set for language or specific language. So you can say for JavaScript, use it, and for blah, blah, use it, and so on. So can also be installed in VS Code. Quick open, paste following command. So it's just telling you how to install it. if you want to use it just for JavaScript, if you want to use it for other things, you can kind of add format on save as well, which is pretty awesome when you're actually trying to have a clean workflow. But it's really bad if you automatically do that and your team's not using it. You get so many problems cross-linked and files changing that shouldn't necessarily need to be changed. Just imagine somebody changed one little tiny bit, or they look at the file and then save, just automatically go, oh, I've got to save. And then it changes all the formatting again. So you've got to be a bit mindful of that. So either use it across your team or don't use it. It's one of those things. Let's see. So we've got that. I've installed the Jupyter thing. Let's do the C#. I very rarely mess with C#. It's only more for me. That'd be like if you're working on an actual Windows application and it's not going to be a cross-platform or anything, and you want a quick interface made, and you can't be bothered jumping in and making like a React app or a JavaScript thing or a TK Python thing or anything, then C# is great. You can just go bang, get your interface done. But it's up to you entirely as to your workflow, what you do. Let's have a look. Language support for Java. Since I've got Java installed, I may as well. There's no reason not to. I mean, usually when I'm doing Java, I'll probably be using either Eclipse, Oracle's editor, or sometimes IntelliJ. So it depends entirely. If I'm doing actually Intel supported base things, I'll sometimes even use Intel's Java editor as well. So I'm pretty editor agnostic when I'm using things. I use VS Code because that's what I teach with, and that's what the place where I kind of teach at uses. So I stick with that for now, just to keep it the same across the board as we're teaching. But yeah, so let's have a look. GitLens is awesome. I love it. I'm in no way sort of paid to promote these things. I just really do like it. But yeah, I was just like, ooh, GitLens. This thing's like literally your GitHub workflow going crazy. I'm going to find Git. Please make sure Git is installed. Yeah, that's because okay, so I don't necessarily want to have the just global install of GitLens. I want that for my WSL workflow, really, because I want Git to be set up for that. Tab 9, another awesome thing. Downside is it needs to learn. So imagine old-fashioned, literally T9 predictive text, where it can ruin people's lives. But once it's trained, it's amazing at times. You're still going to get some problems if you only do it for a small data period. But once you've got it really well trained, it can save so much of your time. It's similar to the idea of when you make lots of snippets where you just go, okay, well, I just want to make a React functional component. You put RFCE tab, and you've got this whole functional component created. So similar sort of idea there, but this is like a more of an AI-based learning version of it. So that's another thing that's really nice. I'm not going to install it directly right now. I'm just going to I'll probably use Docker and some other stuff. Debugger for Java looks interesting, but that's more of a visual stuff. Let's look. Again, most of the time when I want a debugger in Java and stuff, I'll probably use an actual Java IDE. This is more of a generic sort of thing to use for editing things. So it's on those. So that's the Git lens. You can connect it to your GitHub and do loads of stuff. I'm not going to really go into making a tutorial on that just yet. Another thing that's fun is the debugger. So if you're in, say, Python or something, you can create debug configuration files. So you can step through all your stuff, and it's really nice. But for now, I'm not going to jump straight into that because we're doing the tooling stuff. I mean, it can get to be really, really long once you start putting too much on. So for now, we've got this. If I close this, I'll show you the idea of this. So if I make a new directory, I'll call it projects. CD into projects. Make a temporary one. I'm going to delete afterwards. CD into my temporary project. code dot. Now this will use the temporary project folder as the workspace folder. So I need to close this and open it down. Oh dear. Epic fail. Projects, test project, code dot. Hey, perhaps I need some connectivity thing for this. I thought it's been that long since I've had to do this. That's rather interesting. Maybe I have to do a restart of Windows for this as well. It's a good possibility. A lot of the times when things just say I can't find it, it's usually restart Windows. You know what I mean? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close all this off and I'm going to restart Windows because it's probably due a restart after all that installations and bits and pieces and fun stuff. And then we'll continue. I'm going to pause while I restart so it doesn't take too long. I'll see you in a second. Okay, I went off and grabbed a top because it's getting a little bit cold in here. But it's restarted, so let's go and see if that's from my terminal, not command prompt, Windows terminal. There we are. And let's go run the Kali Linux instance and let's see if code works. If not, I'm gonna have a look and find something else, but I'm pretty sure this should work. There's no, I can't think of anything else that's should be an issue. There we go. That's what I wanted it to do. So it was just restart Windows to allow the path to be there. So installing VS Code Server for x64. So this is kind of like a server set that links up the WSL side with the VS Code in Windows. So it then allows you to have this as a fully linked up thing. So you can edit things and it'll be on your WSL. Okay, so let's jump into this. Starting a connection to the Subsystem-Linux connection. Now you'll see it'll have a little WSL Kali Linux here. So just for the hell of it, we'll make a new file. We'll call it testing stuff. Oops, or I'll call it testing by accident. And yeah, let's not do that. I'll just rename it testing. Oh, why not testing.py? Make a Python file. Let's see whether it asks us to choose our Python version and stuff in a moment as well. So let's open that file. Yeah, it's saying recommend extension for Python. I thought I already did. Oh no, this is because it's WSL. This wants to do it locally within the WSL environment. So you may have to find yourself installing different ones depending on what environment you're using. But that's fine. It's got the extension for Python installing for the local WSL environment we're using. So yeah, here it should find all different things, whatever's in Linux itself, there in the WSL Linux environment itself. Then when we do all the things, it'll be kind of local to that. So here's where you may want to install Git lens and stuff like that as well. I haven't actually even set up Git fully yet, but we've got a few things as we go. So it's installed. Now it's looking for the Python. So it's loading the extension. It may ask me what Python interpreter I want, but in general, I've only got one version of Python on there, I think. So we should be good. But it may ask. If it does, I can just choose it. So it's loading up the extension. It's saying get started and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so you can actually create Jupyter notebooks, can create Python files, open workspaces, and use an actual interactive window to do the things. There's no linter installed, so let's have it install one. Why not? So it'll choose one for us. It's got pylint. There we go. It's doing all the installation for us, literally locally on that. And it's automatically chose Python 3.9.2 64-bit, which is perfectly fine. If you have multiple Python installations, you can click and choose one, if you know what I mean. But I'm not too fussed at the moment. It's set as one. So now we've got our linting stuff. You can make a linting config file, and there's loads of other stuff you can go into, but I'm not going to go too crazy. I'm just going to print hello WSL2. And let's run it. So we can go into the debugger. We can just run the current file if you want in the debugger, and it will kind of, or it'll do it as a thing, or attach the debugger and do its thing and then run it. At the moment, there's no breakpoint, so it just works. Or you can type in Python 3, what do I call it, testing.py, and do the same sort of thing. Again, we now have a debug console here. We've got a Python console there. So it's got all these different, and you'll notice it's a Kali Linux again. It's in WSL, it's got the WSL actual thing there, which is pretty cool. You can close some of these off. And if you want a terminal, you can open new terminal, and it's defaulting at the moment to WSL, which is quite nice. You can actually choose different terminals and different shells, but for now, for most of my workflow, I'll be using WSL anyway. So, and we can zoom in again with the Control Plus and zoom out with the Control Minus. So you can still kind of use the same sort of workflow and feel for it. But yeah, so that's kind of us here. And if you want to kind of check out other things, so you could do like testing.c, and it might ask us to install C stuff. Yeah, so I can install the C++ stuff locally into WSL. Usually, if you're within the same environment each time, it will usually have this as set up for WSL. Once you've installed each item into WSL, it will still be there. If you then make, instead of Kali Linux, if you have an Ubuntu one or another one, then you'll have to redo these bits again, basically. Don't show. That's fine. It's just asking me whether I want insiders, preview editions and stuff, and additional stuff. But yeah, so we got C and C++, so we can do like include stdio.h, why not? Oops. Name printf hello WSL2 again. There's a new line. And we can then return exit success. It doesn't like it. What have I misspelled? It doesn't have exit success there. Oh dear. Well, usually exit success is defined to 0, but I thought, you know, I'd be more explicit and say exit success, but apparently it's not there. That's fine. If you leave this off completely, it will, most modern C and C++ compilers will implicitly add a return 0 itself in the background, so you don't always have to write this on modern compilers, but just for brevity's sake, we can add this. That's just saying all is okay. So let's just compile it. Why not? Let's have a look what we got. We got testing C, GCC. We're going to do testing.c and output a file testing. Why not? No sound. Now we've got testing, so we'll do /testing. Yay. We've wrote a C program. Great. Kind of like hello world, but we didn't hello WSL. Same with C++, it's going to look almost identical, just with slightly different stuff. So we can test the workflow for that, but it should be exactly the same. Testing.cpp. See if it tells us we want anything else. No, that's good. So now we're going to include IO stream, which is C++'s input-output stream includes. So we'll be able to do like C out and C in and things like that. So I can do main. Let's see, with int main. Notice I've done slightly different way how I've put it. Usually when I'm doing C++ or Java, I'll usually do on the next line. Not always, but in general, that's usually the practice what you do. If you do it in C, usually you do it on the same line. Some people do Java on the same line as well, so it's a variance on style. Again, I want to do std cout. Hello WSL2. std endline. Okay, so this is the C++ equivalent of the other one we just wrote with a slight caveat. Now, endl does a new line and flushes the buffer. So it cleans out some memory, some buffer space. Whereas \n is just a new line. So technically endl takes a minute, tiny bit longer than if we'd have just put a \n there as far as actual runtime is concerned, but you will not notice it on any modern machine. So it's usually good practice to use endl when you're using C++, but if you want to optimize away a little tiny shaving of time, if you're doing lots and lots of prints, a \n will do the job and be slightly faster. That's more language specific, and I don't really want to get too deep into languages at this point. But now we're going to do G++ with virtually exactly the same sort of syntax. Testing.cpp, output of testing2, we'll call this. And now we'll run testing2. Oh, look, it does exactly the same thing. But, well, we're expecting it because that's kind of the way it's right. But yeah, so now we know we've got a working environment for C, C++, Python. Shall we try out some JavaScript just quickly? Testing.js. I'll literally have a console log. Nice and easy. And we're going to try Node. Let's look. Node, what was it? Testing.js. Oh, look. Hello, WSL. I feel a repetitive sort of theme going on here. But we could run node mon. Actually, I don't think that's going. No, that's not going to really repetitively run. You'd have to have something that continually runs really for that. But yeah, so literally we've got this whole process done here. This seems to be working. What's it moaning about? Wow, it doesn't like that it's in global scope. Yeah, I mean, obviously you'll have your own functionality and stuff and scope things. But yeah, so now we've got this whole construct and we've got a little bit of stuff installed. I probably want to set up my GitHub. I'm not really going to need to show you how to do that, am I? Let's just do it anyway, because why not? So let's move this out of the way for a moment. Git config, and I'm going to do a global config. And I'm going to user.name. So I'm going to put my name. Okay. And then we want to do the same for an email address. One of my addresses, why not? Just do that. And that's it. So you're now set up for your user space stuff for Git. You'll probably want to make a new SSH connection, but I think that's another video. We won't jump straight into that right now because that can take a little bit of time and I don't want to be posting my SSH stuff directly onto video. So in essence, we've kind of gone over a few different things. We've covered the tooling to get us to the point where we could do some Python stuff. We've got to the point where we could do some C stuff, C++, JavaScript, and Java as well. Let's make a new. Hello.java. Public class hello. What was it? Public static int main string args. Okay, so again, you may be in the sort of workflow of doing it that way, or you may be in the workflow of doing it that way. It's up to you how you deal with your things, or up to your team. System.out.println hello WSL2. Println puts a new line afterwards. If you just do print, you need to provide your own new line. You could have this return 0 as well if you like. I'm not going to bother. So let's take a look. Let's do Java C hello.java. one error. Missing return statement. Okay, I'll have to do a return then. Okay, thank you. Oh, I've told it that it's going to return an int, didn't I? Main int. Return 0 to say exit success. There we go. So now VLS will have a hello.class. Now classes are ran on the Java virtual machine. So if we just do Java hello, void main metadata return value type void in class. Okay, that was a bit weird. Let's have a look at this. Main method. Oh, it wants to be a void. Sorry, I'm cross-writing C++ and I think that's why. It's public static void main. It's been that long since I've done any Java. I apologize for that. So I don't need to return anything. That's probably why I didn't actually return anything in there. It was just me being a bit fun times. There we go. Didn't have a problem at compilation time, but at runtime, it was like, well, why are you returning this? I don't know what you're talking about. So let's just run that. There we go. It was just me being a bit special and forgetting that we have to have a void here. So it's like, don't return anything in a main. Which is quite interesting because I suppose realistically, it is only on a virtual machine. So it's not like it can return anything to the actual system. So I suppose that's why they chose that, but I don't know their reasoning for deciding to have void for main. But yeah, so we know that the Java works, we know that JavaScript works, we know that C, C++, and Python works. Okay, I could do some assembly, I suppose. No, I'm not gonna. Well, actually, see, I want my workflow correct. Therefore, there's a couple of other things I want to install for my workflow that you may also use at some point. I don't know. But I use QEMU or QEMU a lot when I'm doing operating system development, systems development, and when I just want to roll out a quick, simple VM. So I can do a sudo apt install QEMU and also QEMU-system x86. That'll give me all the 32-bit and whatever systems and also the QEMU itself, so I can do that. Notice I'm actually doing it in the terminal inside VS Code, so you don't have to do all your stuff directly in the Windows terminal itself. You can do it anywhere, wherever you've got a terminal available. It's going to be 179 items installed. It's got a lot of bits and pieces that it's installing now. So I'll let that do and pause, and then we'll be back in a moment once it's done. Okay, that's actually installed. So if I bring this up a little bit, we can run QEMU in ncurse's environment. So we can actually run it directly in the terminal. So if I clear this and run QEMU system i386, it can't initialize the X server because there's no graphics. But if I now go like that, it does it within the actual terminal. So we don't have to worry about going off and doing X Windows. Obviously, there's no bootable device, there's nothing attached. I've just physically booted it up. The downside to the ncurses is you have to literally close the terminal off like that each time that you finish with it. It kind of takes over the entire terminal. So be mindful of that. Usually open a new terminal for it each time. So you can just press the plus button here, and that'll be your terminal ready to put your QEMU. And then you can always switch back to your other one, mess about with stuff and do things as well. But remember that if you want to close it, you still need to press that sort of bin button there to close it off. Okay. On that note, I think what we'll do is I think we'll literally make a quick assembly file. Why not? Boot.asm. Let's say I want to jump for an infinite loop. Give me an infinite loop. Then I want to pad out the rest of this space. Is this saying it wants to? Don't show again for it. Yeah, why not? Let's see if there's any ASM file things. There we go. Let's install the bits and pieces of assembly. Why not? Let's close that. Right, so this is just a jump, infinite loop, basically. So we can say it's an infinite loop. It's an infinite loop. The other thing what we want, because I'm going to make a boot sector. This isn't a boot sector tutorial. I'm just literally making one so I can test out my commute and test out my assembly tools as well while I go. So in essence, I'm going to want to have some sort of padding. So I can say, okay, I want to do times 510 minus, I want to minus current line and minus the all previous lines. And I want to fill the padding with zeros just to make this up to 510 bytes. Now, boot sector is 512 bytes, but the last 2 bytes of the boot sector have to have this signature. I'm trying to think whether little endian or large endian would be one, but let's say I want a data word, which is 2 bytes of AA55. Now I want it in hex, so 0x. And what it is, it's actually 55AA. But if you're in little endian, it's going to be swapped around in the binary. So we write it out this way. If you're in big endian, it may be different. So I'll save that. I may have this back to front now, just be awkward. So we've got our infinite loop, we've got some padding, and we've got some sort of data. Oh, that's the other thing I want to install as well, now that we're thinking about it, is we want to install some sort of Hex Editor. So we can kind of edit config. No, Hex Editor allows hex editing in VS Code. That's what I want. It'll allow me to do like binary editing and things, so I can view the binary file that we output and even mess about with the hex in it. It's not, most of the time I use it for viewing hex and showing things, but it is nice to have. Right, so now that we've got this boot sector, it doesn't do much, it just infinitely loops. We can assemble it. Let's try and assemble it. Let's have a look. Boot.asm, yeah. So we'll use nasm, and I want it to be a binary file, so I can say file type bin. The file that I want to assemble, boot.asm, and what my output is, boot.bin. In pass-through instruction expected. What do you mean pass-through instruction expected? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I put time instead of times. Sorry. Typos for the win. There we go. Let's just do incorrect assembly. Why not? Okay, so now if I go and have a look what we've got a boot.bin. If I right click this and open with Hex Editor, we can actually see the code in the Hex Editor. Look, it's got jump to yourself. That's what EBFE. Bunch of zeros that we padded it out with. Right at the end, 55AA. Now, bearing in mind, I put AA55. So it's little endian, so it swaps it around in that way. It reads like AA55, but when we look at it, it looks like it's 55AA in that sense. Right, so now that we've got our boot sector and it's fully sort of there, let's try and run it in QEMU. So let's bring that up. QEMU system i386 boot.bin, and let's see if I've put the 5 up in the AA in the correct order. Oh, sorry. Curses. There we go. Booting from our disk, booting and sitting there and just keeps remediating over it. Let's get some visuals. I didn't really want to make this into an assembly tutorial or anything, but I'm just gonna do it. Why not? Right, so we have different registers in the CPU. I'm going to move a piece of data into the AH portion register, 0x0e, which is actually a BIOS function. TTY mode. So we can write a character to the screen. using this. This is just setting a mode where we can start writing the character to the screen. Then we can move into AL, the lower portion of the AX register. We can move a character. So let's try A. Yeah. Then I want to run an interrupt, int 0x10, which is the write chart to screen in TTY mode. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. And this lot here is padding, and this is the boot signature. So let's reassemble this again. There we go. And let's run it again. Okay, I've got it a bit broken by looking at it. It's not putting the A on there. I can see. So something's wrong. 0x0e, I'm moving that into AL. I'm calling the interrupt. I have a feeling we may need to org it, but let's try it. I think that's the address where the BIOS puts our boot sector, but let's double check. Interesting problem. That shouldn't be a problem. I have got so many boot sectors wrote, and this shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to double check my BIOS. Pause and check this, and then I'll get back to you with what's going on, because this shouldn't be happening. I've probably got something backwards on something. Right, for some reason, guess what I did wrong? Can somebody see what's happening here? I'm getting an infinite loop, then I'm doing my stuff. Maybe I shouldn't have put that right there. Normally when I write this, I'll plonk it somewhere down here to start with, so I've got somewhere to put things. So I'm just going to I'm doing an infinite loop, then I'm trying to write to the screen, but it's not doing it because it's already doing the infinite loop. So hopefully somebody saw that and kind of pointed it out and jumped around and change it. But all good fun. So theoretically this should be fine. There's no issues in the actual code other than the fact that I was doing an infinite loop first. You know, when you see somebody making a video and you're like, why are you doing that? You need to change that. And you're just staring at the screen going, why? But then when you're kind of within there, you can't see it. It's like tunnel vision type thing. All good fun. Let's do this then. So still do the nasm, and then still do the thing, and we'll get an A on the screen, hopefully. There we go, we've got our A. That was because I did the infinite loop first, and then tried to do this because it was never getting to this code. Fun thing is, that means we can just change character and do 0x10 each time. So if I go like this, I can write like a little string to the thing. So if I change that to like H, E, L, and if we want two L's, we only need to put it in once. We can put a 0x10 again here because it's still in AL. So it's just writing whatever's in AL to the screen. Hello, O, so we can change this to O, and then a space. Then I want to put WSL2. Space and W S L 2. Okay, there's a few caveats there. We could do other things. We could look up the hex code for new line, but I'm not going to bother. But in general, we now have it printing character H, E, LL, O, space, WSL2. So let's save that, run our new terminal, assemble our program, and run our program. And hello, WSL2. There we go. So we've wrote a boot sector that actually does our hello WSL2 code in assembly. So we've fully tested our assembly language thing so far for what we want. So my tooling works so far. So I can start developing operating systems. I could do Java development. I could do C or C++ development. I can do JavaScript development or Python development on this system. I can also technically do Rust development, so we can test the workflow of that quickly. Let's do that. So cargo, test, ing. Cargon, let's not do that. Typos for the win. Oh, testing folder already exists, damn it. It's trying to make a thing that's already there. So testing Rust, we'll call it. There we go, that's better. So this testing Rust folder is the one with all the bits in. So we can cd into testing Rust. We've now got our thing. So this automatically has a hello world file in. So we can just edit it to have hello WSL, but it's just a println. So hello WSL to print line macro basically. So, and we can compile this using cargo. So we can sort of like say, okay, I'm in there. So I can do cargo run, which will compile it and run it. So we can test it out. It's just testing our tool chain. Notice how it's compiling, it's running, and it works. Hello WSL2. So far our tooling seems to be working all across the board. Yeah. So we've got Rust, we've got assembly, we've got Java, we got C, we got C++, JavaScript, Python. So hopefully this is useful. Again, it's going to be useful for me. It's good enough tooling to get me started. Again, there are other tools that you may want. There's, I think, Postman is another one. Let's see if we can grab Postman. This will be probably useful if you want to make requests to APIs and debug APIs in general. Oops, didn't want it to download again. It's one good and bad side to Brave is that it seems to remember your last tabs. And if your last tab happened to be you downloading something, when you open it, it starts downloading again. So be mindful of that. So I want Postman. Postman. Download Postman. No, it's not an actual Postman. It's an app. So download the app. Why not? For Windows 64-bit for now. So we did want to download, we just didn't want to download that random other thing that had already downloaded. Let's look. That's it's not even going to be a minute. So yeah, Postman in general is a thing that you can send HTTP requests and things to APIs, so that you can kind of get some feedback from them. So really good when you're debugging and building out APIs. You can also use curl, or you can use httpie. I might actually look that up whilst we're doing that, actually. Why not? Command line HTTP client for the API era. Awesome. httpie. That's where it's kind of comes with JSON support, syntax highlighting, persistent sessions, wget like downloads, plugins, and more. How cool is that? It's got so much to it instead of just having wget and stuff. So let's have an install and see what to install. Actually, we can buy any operating system, whatever tool, install httpie. So what we got: brew, we got apt-get, we got pip, we got port, we got yum. So I'm going to use apt install httpie. Why not? And see how that goes. So we should have downloaded that thing though. So I'll finish installing Postman first, and then we'll have a look at httpie. You'll find that when I'm installing my tooling, it's usually like bang, 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 and just grab all of them and do them sort of asynchronously. Whatever will install at the same time, I will install usually. But I'm just kind of trying to take it a little bit slower and making sure that we can kind of see what we're doing. Installing Postman. So he didn't even ask me what I wanted to do. It's just said, I'm a splash screen, I'm installing. I don't know whether it's going to install in the background or whether it's going to request anything. Oh, it's literally click it and install. How crazy is that? This is a new installation from what I'm used to, by the way, so it's different. But that's cool. So installing, and I'm guessing it's installed. Oh, it's running, I think. It's not very intuitive, really, is it? It's like, okay, but it's doing things for you, I suppose. If that scares you, don't worry. I'm sure it's not breaking anything. Famous last words. Okay, so it's running. It may be running a little bit slow because we're on, let's see, but create account, sign in, free Postman accounts lets you blah, 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 blah. Yep, okay, cool. Can I make a new something without having to log in? It's one of the things I was a bit iffy about Postman originally, was that you have to make accounts and do stuff, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it without. Skip. Go to the app. There we go. You can skip it. Working locally, Scratchpad, workspace, blah, blah. Awesome. So you got all different things that you can do, sort of create actual API requests and stuff like that. New Scratchpads and create requests, environments, collections. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of using this, but that was just getting the tools up. So now I'm going to install a httpie or a httpie, or whatever you call it, httpie. I can't pronounce it. So apt install, so sudo apt install for our purposes. httpie. And there we go. So that's going to install. Utilizing that. It looks like I say, it's a Python tool itself, but it's pretty awesome. Okay, httpie is not a command. So what do I type to get the command running? HTTPS, httpie, blah, blah, hello. What? So do we just put HTTP? Ooh, okay, so we just put HTTP. We don't have to put the PIE or anything else like that. Let's do the hello world one in a sec. Let's test it out. Copy that. Thank you for trying httpie. I hope this will become, that's cool. So it's got all the bits. Awesome. It's got all the request information as well there. That's pretty awesome as well. Okay, that's brilliant. So that's installed. Let's have a look. So you can have a little read through the documentation. I'll leave a link in the description of the video as well. So far, we've kind of got quite a lot of different tooling up and running. I'm trying to think literally as to what else would be useful. I mean, like I said, I would normally, if I want to do a Java workflow, I would normally install something like one of the actual IDEs versus just using VS Code, but VS Code okay in a pinch. But yeah, so you might want to install different web browsers as well for your tooling. You might want to install more cloud stuff. You might want Docker and other things. I'm not going to specifically be using that right now, so I'm not going to do that right this second. For now, I think we have some workable tooling together, and the compilers and assemblers and the runners seem to be working. So I'm quite happy about that. Again, feel free to install any editors you want and the workflow for you. But for now, that I think is enough to get me running. If there's anything specific, normally if it's within WSL, it'll be apt, oh sorry, it'll be sudo apt install the thing you want to install, like the package. Yeah, and that'll be the same across the board for most things. Certain things are npm packages, certain things are going to be like pip packages and stuff, so it'll be specific to your workflow. But for now, for me, that's okay for tooling. You can add Azure clients and all sorts, but for now that seems fine. Personally, I'd probably end up with Unreal Engine, Unity, 3D, and also Visual Studio on most of my systems. But that's not necessarily what you need. So it's up to you to decide what it is that you want to use for your workflow. It's been a lot of fun making this video, and I will be probably leaving it there and not adding anything to this until we are live again or on another video. But hopefully it was useful, and again I'll drop the document and all the links in the description as well. So let's stop the screen share and have a good one. I will see you in the next video.